The Arvok fleet glided silently through the black void of space, their sleek ships reflecting distant stars like shards of silver. Captain Varkal sat in the command bridge of the flagship, his forearms resting on the control console. He watched, the screens flicker with the readings from a small human settlement on Arith, a rocky planet at the edge of the Orion expanse. The distress signal had been weak, barely a whisper across the void, yet it carried something strange, something that made his instincts tingle. Humans were considered weak, fragile, and unpredictable. Across the galaxy, most species dismissed them as primitive creatures who survived only through luck or stubbornness. The Arvok had fought many species, many strong and disciplined armies, and humans were never part of that conversation. Yet here they were, a tiny colony sending a call for help. Varkal frowned, a small bead of tension running down his mandible. Perhaps they are in trouble, he murmured almost to himself. Or perhaps they are bait. His crew, disciplined and confident, murmured among themselves. They had seen humans before, and always the same pattern had played out. Humans panic, humans die, humans barely survive. They were curious but not concerned. "Shall we respond, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Carroll, her multiple eyes glinting under the bridge lights. Her tone carried a mixture of professionalism and skepticism. "They will not pose any real threat." Varkal nodded slowly. "Yes, we respond. But caution is advised. Something about this signal feels different." The fleet descended through Arith's upper atmosphere, cutting through thick clouds that swirled like silver smoke. Below, the planet's surface was jagged, scarred by violent storms and deep, twisting canyons. The human settlement lay nestled among these rocks, a cluster of small towers and domed buildings, connected by narrow bridges and walking paths. Smoke drifted from chimneys, the faint signs of life in a harsh, unforgiving world. Yet despite the calm appearance, there was tension in the air. Something in the human settlement vibrated quietly, like a heartbeat waiting for a challenge. When the Arvok ships landed, humans emerged cautiously. They were small, fragile-looking beings with pale skin and simple clothing. Some carried tools, others held primitive weapons that the Arvok considered laughable. Captain Varkal observed them silently, noting how they moved in small groups, eyes darting, bodies tense yet composed. A human woman stepped forward, tall and lean, with hair like flowing copper and eyes that burned with intelligence. "I am Mara," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We did not expect help, but we are grateful." There was no fear in her tone, only an awareness of the danger around them. Her presence carried authority, a subtle command over those near her. Varkal's crew exchanged glances. The humans seemed harmless, but there was something beneath the surface, something that stirred a strange unease in the experienced Arvok warriors. Before they could speak further, alarms blared across the settlement. The humans stiffened, their bodies coiling like springs. Shadows moved across the jagged terrain, fast, silent, and lethal. Alien predators descended from the cliffs in storm. Clouds, creatures armored in black chitin claws dripping with venom. They were terrifying, powerful, and utterly ruthless. The humans did not panic. Mara raised her hand, and her people formed defensive positions, not fleeing but preparing. Varkal's jaw tightened. These humans were untrained, underarmed, and outnumbered. In any other situation, they would have been slaughtered instantly. Yet there was something in their stance, a quiet confidence, a sharp awareness that suggested they were not ordinary prey. Blasts of energy lit the rocky night as the predators attacked. The humans responded with swift movements, firing rifles and wielding blades with uncanny precision. They were simple weapons, yet the humans used them with creativity, improvisation, and a terrifying cunning. They vanished behind rocks, struck, and reappeared where the predators least expected. The battlefield became a dance of shadows and light, of survival and death. Captain Varkal's mind raced. He had expected weakness, hesitation, terror, but what he saw instead was focus, discipline, and a strange, terrifying beauty. These humans were more than survivalists, they were hunters in their own right. He felt a mix of fear and admiration stir inside him, a feeling he had never experienced when observing another species. From his vantage point, the Arvok fleet watched the settlement struggle. Mara moved through the chaos as though she were part of the storm itself, calm, decisive, untouchable. The predators were strong, but the humans had something no one had ever predicted: an instinctive understanding of danger, a connection to the environment, and a fierce will to survive that radiated from every movement. Varkal whispered to himself, almost in awe, "Perhaps we have underestimated them. Far too long." And in the shadows of Aerith, the first hints of something called predator mode began to awaken among the humans. A latent force, silent, deadly, and terrifying, waiting for the right moment to strike. The night on Aerith was alive with movement, shadows stretching across jagged cliffs as the alien predators descended, their claws dug into rock, spines glinting under the storm-lit sky. They moved with deadly purpose, hunting the humans as if sensing their fear. But fear did not exist here, at least not in the way the predators expected. The humans were alert, eyes sharp, bodies tense, but ready. They did not cower. They adapted. Mara's voice cut through the chaos, calm yet commanding. "Hold your ground. Watch their patterns." Her words were not loud, but they carried authority, a signal that seemed to synchronize the small group of humans like an unspoken language. Every human on the battlefield instinctively knew their role. Some fired rifles from behind jagged rocks, picking off predators before they could strike. Others disappeared into the shadows, moving like whispers, reappearing to slash, kick, or trap. Varkal watched from the ridge above, jaw tight, his mind racing. He had seen battles before, countless conflicts where his species crushed weaker prey with ease. But these humans, these fragile creatures, were doing something no one expected. They were not merely defending, they were planning, predicting, and striking with precision that seemed almost supernatural. One human, tall and scarred, moved ahead of the group. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and even from a distance, Varkal could sense something in him, an aura of raw, untapped power. He did not carry a heavy weapon, only a simple blade, yet the predators hesitated when he appeared as though some invisible force warned them of danger. Then he struck. The movements were lightning fast, almost impossible to follow. He dodged, slashed and vanished only to appear behind another predator and end its life with a precise strike. The rest of the humans mirrored him, each move coordinated without spoken words, instinct guiding their actions. Varkal felt a chill run through his core. This was not human weakness. This was human cunning amplified to a level no species had ever displayed. The predators roared, frustration echoing through the rocky canyon. They were strong, designed to hunt, bred for killing. Yet these humans, these tiny, fragile creatures, were turning the hunt against them. The predators' confidence faltered. They tried to flank, to overwhelm, but every strategy was anticipated, every weakness exploited. Mara's group set traps with lightning speed, hidden pits and snares that immobilized the alien attackers. They moved silently, shadows blending with the terrain, and struck where the predators least expected. Varkal realized with growing horror that these humans were not just reacting. They were orchestrating, analyzing, predicting with uncanny clarity. Every predator that lunged too close was met with a well-timed counter. Every ambush turned into a trap. Despite the terror and chaos, the humans showed something else too. When a predator lunged too close to a civilian, they intercepted it without hesitation. They risked their lives not just to survive, but to protect those weaker than themselves. It was a strange combination, the hunter and the guardian coexisting in perfect balance. Varkal had never witnessed anything like it. The battle escalated, flashes of energy lighting the canyon, the air thick with the scent of ozone and scorched rock. The predators were relentless, but the humans were relentless too. Every moment, Varkal's understanding shifted. He realized that these creatures had an innate, terrifying capacity for adaptation. They thrived under pressure, their minds and bodies pushing beyond ordinary limits. From his vantage point, Varkal could see it, the human's predator mode beginning to awaken. Subtle at first, a flicker of focus, a sharpened glance, movements faster and more precise than before. But then it became obvious. The humans were not just defending, they were hunting now, stalking their hunters with the same primal precision the predators themselves used. Varkal's chest tightened. He had thought the galaxy's strongest hunters were the apex predators, the species that dominated through sheer power. But these humans, these fragile beings had something deeper, more dangerous. They were unpredictable, cunning, and above all, fearless. Ted easy prey, not this. They had anticipated fear and chaos, not precision and strategy. Their instincts, once sharp and reliable, betrayed them now. Every move they made was met with a calculated human counter. Every lunge, every strike, every attempt to corner the humans was turned against them. From the cliffs, Mara led a small strike team to rescue civilians trapped in a collapse. Mara led a small group into a narrow canyon where several predators had cornered a human child. Without hesitation, she struck, her movements fluid, lethal, yet controlled. The child was safe before the predators even realized what had happened. That moment crystallized everything for Varkal. Humans were not weak. Humans were a force that balanced aggression and compassion, power and protection, with instincts honed by survival and intellect. The night dragged on, filled with sounds of struggle and flashes of deadly precision. Slowly, the predators' advantage diminished. They were strong, yes, but these humans, tiny, fragile, intelligent, and unyielding, were stronger in ways no one had imagined. By dawn, the battlefield had changed. The predators were wounded, scattered, and retreating. Varkal, watching silently from above, realized a truth that would stay with him forever. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the predator. And when awakened, predator mode would show the galaxy exactly what humans truly were. The storm on Aerith raged harder as night deepened, lightning flashing across jagged cliffs and illuminating the chaos below. The alien predators, massive and armored, had expected a simple hunt. They had expected fear, screams, and easy kills. But humans were something else entirely, something the predators could not predict. Mara moved among her people like a shadow in the storm, every step measured, every breath controlled. She had felt it, the change that had begun hours ago, but now it was complete. Predator mode was no longer a flicker or a glimmer of instinct. It was alive, a force within every human, sharpening their senses, accelerating their reflexes, and linking mind and body in perfect harmony. Varkal watched from the ridge above, unable to tear his eyes away. The humans' movements became almost unnatural in their precision. They vanished behind rocks, reappeared atop cliffs, and struck predators from angles that seemed impossible. Every trap, every strike, every decision was perfect. The predators, creatures designed for hunting, were now being hunted. One human, the tall, scarred man Varkal had noticed before, moved with an almost supernatural grace. His blade danced through the air, each strike lethal, each movement flowing seamlessly into the next. Yet he was calm, his face a mask of focus and determination. Around him, other humans mirrored his precision, their instincts tuned to the rhythm of the hunt. They did not fight blindly. They fought smart, relentless, and perfectly coordinated. The predators howled in frustration, confused by their prey's unexpected skill. They lunged, clawed, and snapped, yet the humans anticipated every move. Mara's group split, reappearing behind the predators, striking without warning, vanishing before retaliation could reach them. The humans' eyes glowed faintly under the storm, a signal that the predator mode was fully awake. They were alive with focus, power, and something primal, a predator's hunger not for food but for survival and justice. Captain Varkal felt a chill run through him. He had seen many species in battle, many so-called apex hunters, but nothing had ever prepared him for this. The humans were not only surviving, they were dominating. They struck fear into creatures that had never known it, turning the tables in a way that no one could have imagined. In the midst of the storm, a predator lunged at a group of humans trying to protect a young child. Mara stepped forward without hesitation. She moved like a phantom, her body a blur, and struck with deadly precision. The predator fell before it could react, and the child remained unharmed. In that instant, Varkal realized that predator mode was not about killing alone. It was about control, intelligence, and instinct working together. Humans were not mindless killers. They were calculated, ruthless, yet protective. The humans' connection to one another was astonishing. Without speaking, they moved as one, covering each other, anticipating attacks, and taking advantage of every weakness. They were hunters in the purest sense, but they were hunters with purpose. They did not revel in cruelty. They did not strike out of malice. They struck to survive, to protect, and to triumph over a threat that should have destroyed them. Varkal's mind raced. He had thought humans were fragile, unpredictable, and weak. He had assumed their survival was luck, that their resistance could be broken easily. But now he saw the truth. Humans were adaptable, relentless, and cunning beyond measure. Predator mode was not just a skill. It was a way of life, a force that emerged when needed, turning ordinary humans into extraordinary warriors. The battlefield became a symphony of movement, strategy, and power. Humans vanished into shadows, reappeared where least expected, and struck with deadly accuracy. The predators, once confident and terrifying, began to falter. Confusion spread among their ranks. They tried to regroup to find a weakness, but none existed. Every move was met with a counter, every attack anticipated. Varkal could feel his chest tighten. His species prided itself on strength, discipline, and tactical superiority. Yet here, before his eyes, a species he had underestimated completely was showing him what true power looked like. It was terrifying. It was awe-inspiring, and it was human. As dawn approached, the storm began to subside, and the battlefield fell into an eerie quiet. The predators that remained fled, broken and beaten, leaving the humans standing, exhausted but victorious. Predator mode had proven its might. Humans had not only survived, they had dominated. Varkal stared at the survivors, understanding at last what had been hidden beneath their fragile appearances. Humans were not weak. Humans were predators, hunters, and protectors all in one. And when awakened, they became a force that no species, no predator, could underestimate. For the first time, the galaxy's perception of humanity began to change, and Captain Varkal knew that nothing would ever be the same. The sun had barely risen over Aerith, painting the jagged cliffs in blood-red light, yet the battle was far from over. The predators, though battered and retreating, still pressed with relentless determination. They were apex hunters by design, creatures that had ruled their hunting grounds for centuries. But the humans, small, fragile-looking, yet terrifyingly precise, had changed the rules of the fight entirely. Mara stood atop a rocky ridge, her hair wet from the storm and sweat, eyes scanning the battlefield. Her heart pounded not with fear but with focus. Each human around her moved with an uncanny rhythm, anticipating attacks, coordinating strikes without words. Predator mode had sharpened their senses to perfection. They were aware of every predator's twitch, every flick of a claw, every shift in the wind. They were no longer defending, they were hunting. From a distance, Varkal observed, still trying to reconcile what he saw with what he had always believed. "They are unstoppable," he whispered to himself. The humans were not just surviving, they were dominating. A group of predators had tried to flank the humans from the canyon, expecting to find a weakness, a crack in their formation. Instead, they walked straight into a trap. The humans had used the jagged terrain perfectly. They had anticipated the predators' instincts, turning the rocky cliffs and narrow ledges into killing grounds. One predator lunged blindly, only to be ensnared by a hidden snare. Another was cornered on a cliff edge, and before it could leap to safety, two humans appeared from nowhere, their blades cutting in perfect synchronization. Each predator that fell seemed almost inevitable, a testament to human cunning and precision. Varkal could not look away. His entire fleet watched in stunned silence as humans, the species once thought fragile and insignificant, orchestrated a battle that would have humbled even the most disciplined Arvok regiments. These were no ordinary survivors. They were predators, thinkers, and warriors all at once. And yet, there was more to it than sheer skill. The humans protected each other with ferocity. When one human was threatened, others would instantly reposition, intercepting attacks without hesitation. Mara herself risked her life multiple times to shield others, moving like a phantom across the battlefield. Predator mode was not just about killing. It was about control, protection, and the balance of strategy and instinct. The predators howled in frustration, their confidence shaken. They had expecting building. The predators had driven them there intentionally, expecting panic to slow the humans down. But panic did not exist here. The humans moved with silent precision, clearing the building in moments, dragging the frightened civilians to safety. And when the predators charged to stop them, the humans struck with lethal accuracy, eliminating the threat in seconds. Varkal felt a mix of awe and fear tighten in his chest. He had faced dangerous species before, but never had he encountered creatures that could combine intelligence, courage, and raw instinct in such perfect harmony. The humans were terrifying but beautiful in their precision. As the battle wore on, the tide had completely turned. Predators that once prowled confidently were now running for their lives. The humans pushed forward with relentless determination, hunting where they were once hunted. Every predator that fell seemed like a lesson for the next. Humans adapted instantly, learning, predicting, and overcoming. Finally, as the morning light fully bathed the jagged landscape, the battlefield fell quiet. The predators had fled, broken and demoralized. The humans, though exhausted and battered, remained standing. They were bruised, bleeding, and weary, yet there was no fear in their eyes. Only triumph, resilience, and the quiet pride of survivors who had become predators in their own right. Varkal lowered his gaze, humbled beyond words. "This was humanity," he murmured. For the first time, he understood the truth. Humans were not weak, not fragile, not insignificant. They were cunning, adaptable, and deadly when necessary. Predator mode was not a mere instinct, it was a testament to the will, spirit, and ingenuity that defined humanity itself. And as the humans tended to one another, helping the wounded and sharing water and supplies, it became clear that their strength was not just in fighting, it was in their unity, their compassion, and their relentless refusal to surrender. The predators had underestimated them. The galaxy had underestimated them. But humans had survived, thrived, and dominated in ways no one could ever forget. Varkal exhaled slowly, realizing that his perception, and the perception of the galaxy, had forever changed. These humans, these fragile-looking beings, had shown him what true power looked like. Predator mode was real, and it was terrifyingly, magnificently human. The battlefield was silent now, save for the distant hiss of steam rising from scorched rock and the occasional groan of a wounded predator. The humans stood among the debris, breathing heavily, their clothes torn, faces smeared with blood and dirt. But there was no fear, no panic, only quiet strength. Every movement radiated control, awareness, and unbroken determination. They had survived. More than that, they had dominated. Captain Varkal descended from the ridge, his armored feet crunching against shattered stone. He had watched the humans through the chaos, trying to reconcile what he knew with what he had seen. Every Arvok soldier in his fleet had witnessed the same thing. Humans were not ordinary prey. They were hunters in their own right, and the realization struck him harder than any battle wound ever could. He approached Mara, who was kneeling beside a wounded young man, applying a bandage with gentle precision. Her face, streaked with grime and sweat, showed exhaustion, but also clarity, resolve, and compassion. Varkal's four eyes narrowed as he observed her.
"How?"
he began, but words failed him. Mara looked up calmly. "We survive," she said simply. "We adapt, and when necessary, we fight." Her tone was quiet, almost gentle, yet carried the weight of absolute truth. Varkal felt a strange mix of fear and awe ripple through him. He walked among the humans, noting their injuries, their discipline, and the subtle ways they protected each other. Even when alone, they scanned the horizon, anticipating threats, moving with instinctive precision. Every human seemed connected, not just to each other but to the environment itself, reading danger as if it were written in the air. It was predator mode fully awakened, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A young human girl approached him cautiously, holding a small medkit. "Are you hurt?" she asked softly. Varkal froze, taken aback by the compassion in her voice. He had seen them kill, destroy, and dominate, but here, amidst the battle's aftermath, they showed mercy, care, and empathy. It was a paradox that unsettled him deeply. These fragile creatures were lethal hunters, yet they were capable of tenderness. Lieutenant Carroll, Varkal's second-in-command, whispered from behind him, "Captain, they are more than fighters, they are everything we thought we knew about life and more." Varkal nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. They had come expecting weakness. They had come expecting prey. Instead, they had found predators who could teach the galaxy what survival truly meant. Mara stood looking across the battlefield. The predators had fled, their once proud forms now broken and scattered. Her people were weary yet unbowed. She spoke to her group, her voice soft but firm. "We protect what is ours. We survive, and we never forget who we are." Varkal felt something shift within him. He realized that the humans' strength was not just physical or tactical. It was their will, their refusal to surrender, their courage in the face of overwhelming odds, and their relentless drive to adapt and overcome. Every predator that fell, every trap that succeeded, every life that was saved was a testament to human ingenuity, instinct, and spirit. He turned to his officers. "We underestimated them," he said quietly. "Entirely. They are not weak, not fragile, not insignificant. They are—" He paused, searching for words, but none were sufficient. "They are predators, and guardians at the same time, a force that cannot be ignored." The humans had begun tending to the wounded Arvok soldiers, offering water, bandages, and careful words of reassurance. They did not gloat. They did not mock. They had survived, triumphed, and shown mercy. It was a level of complexity and strength that the Arvok had never witnessed before. Varkal's mind replayed the battle over and over. He saw Mara striking from the shadows, coordinating attacks silently, saving the vulnerable while hunting the predators. He saw every human anticipate danger, strike decisively, and vanish like ghosts. And he realized something profound. Humans were not merely fighting to survive, they were teaching. Every move, every action was a lesson in what it meant to be alive, adaptive, and unyielding. As the morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the ruined landscape, Varkal understood the truth. The galaxy had been blind. Every species that had judged humans as weak had been wrong. Predator mode was not a skill. It was an embodiment of humanity's spirit. It was the proof that even the most fragile-looking species could rise, dominate, and inspire awe when their instincts, intelligence, and courage combined. Varkal looked back at Mara, whose eyes met his with calm understanding. No words were needed. The humans had shown what they were, and now, the Arvok and perhaps the rest of the galaxy had no choice but to acknowledge it. Humans were predators. Humans were protectors. Humans were something the universe had never expected, and the galaxy would never forget. The battlefield was quiet now, yet the air still carried tension, thick and heavy like smoke from the scorched earth. The predators had vanished, leaving only their marks on the jagged cliffs and broken terrain. The humans, bruised and bloodied, moved with steady purpose, tending to their wounded, salvaging supplies, and reinforcing their small settlement. Their predator mode had faded slightly, but the aura of power and focus still lingered in their movements. Captain Varkal descended from his ship, walking among the humans cautiously. Every step he took was measured. He had never felt so out of place in his life. The humans had fought and survived against creatures designed to hunt. They had not only survived, they had dominated, and they had done so with a combination of precision, instinct, and an unshakable moral compass that left him in awe. Mara approached him, calm and collected despite the exhaustion that clung to her like a second skin. "You watched?" she said simply. Her eyes held no malice, no prideful boast, only understanding. Varkal nodded slowly. "We did. We underestimated you." "Entirely." She gestured to her people who were cleaning weapons, tending to injuries, and quietly organizing defenses. "We protect each other," she said. "We adapt, we fight, but we also care. Strength is not only in how hard we strike, it is in how we survive, how we endure, and how we protect what matters." Varkal's chest tightened. He had faced countless species, many of whom prided themselves on strength, discipline, and cunning. Yet none had combined power, intelligence, and compassion as humans did. The predator mode he had witnessed was more than raw instinct. It was a perfect balance of hunting skill, tactical brilliance, and moral awareness. Humans were predators, yes, but they were guardians as well. Lieutenant Carroll whispered beside him, awe clear in her voice. "They are. Everything we thought we knew about life and more. Every battle, every instinct, every decision. It is perfect." Varkal nodded, his four eyes scanning the settlement once more. The humans were calm, organized, and purposeful, even after facing almost certain death. Their strength was not only in their arms or weapons, It was in their unity, their will, and their relentless spirit. Mara's team began rebuilding barriers around the settlement, ensuring that no predator or any threat could breach their walls again. Children, previously hidden in shelters, emerged cautiously, their eyes wide but safe. Humans moved among them protectively, their vigilance unwavering. Varkal realized that this was a lesson the galaxy had ignored for centuries. True strength was not about dominance alone, it was about responsibility, adaptability, and the courage to rise above fear. One of Mara's warriors approached an injured Arvok soldier, offering a water ration and a small patch for a wound. The soldier looked skeptical at first but accepted the gesture. Varkal watched quietly, understanding that the humans' power was not solely in combat. It was in their choices, in how they wielded that power, and in the principles that guided them. The humans gathered together and Mara spoke to her group, her voice carrying across the rocky cliffs. We survived because we trusted each other. We adapted because we never gave up. And we fought not because we wanted to kill, but because we refused to be defeated. That is what it means to be human. Varkal exhaled slowly, a mix of relief, respect, and awe coursing through him. Every lesson, every display of courage and cunning, was a revelation. The humans had shown him and his crew that strength was more than weaponry or brute force. It was willpower, intelligence, compassion, and unity, all fused together in a force that could overcome even the most terrifying predators. He turned to Carol. "We came here thinking we were the superior hunters," he said quietly. "We came expecting to observe weakness, but the truth is, we were taught a lesson, and it is one we will not forget. The humans did not celebrate. They did not boast. They simply stood, tending to one another and to the land they protected, calm and composed. Their predator mode had proven itself in combat, but their humanity, compassion, loyalty, and moral strength was what left the greatest impression." Varkal realized that the galaxy's perception of humanity had been flawed for centuries. They were not just survivors, they were a species capable of rising above every expectation, of blending deadly instinct with morality, intelligence, and empathy. Predator mode was terrifying, yes, but it was also beautiful, a living testament to human ingenuity and spirit. As the Arvok fleet prepared to depart, Varkal looked once more at the humans of Aerith. "We underestimated you," he said softly, more to himself than to anyone else. "But now we understand, and we will never make that mistake again." And somewhere in the quiet, amidst the ruins and the calm, Mara smiled faintly. Humanity had survived, had triumphed, and had taught a galaxy full of hunters exactly what it meant to be human. The sun rose fully over Aerith, casting golden light on jagged cliffs and shattered terrain. The predators were gone, leaving only the echoes of their roars in the memories of those who had faced them. The humans, exhausted but unbroken, moved through the settlement tending to the wounded, repairing walls and quietly organizing what remained. Their predator mode had faded, but the aura of strength, discipline, and calm determination lingered in every movement. Captain Varkal walked among them, his four eyes wide with a mixture of awe and disbelief. He had witnessed countless battles, faced innumerable species, and commanded fleets through the most dangerous sectors of the galaxy, yet nothing had prepared him for what he had seen here. Humans, seemingly fragile and small, had fought and triumphed against creatures that should have destroyed them. And they had done it not just with skill, but with precision, instinct, and an unshakable will. Mara approached him, walking with steady grace despite exhaustion. "You watched," she said quietly, her copper hair shining in the morning light. Her eyes held understanding, calm authority, and quiet pride. Varkal nodded. "We did, and what we saw, it is beyond anything we imagined. Humanity is unlike any species we have ever known." She smiled faintly. "We survive," she said. "We adapt. And when necessary, we fight. But our strength is not only in how we strike, it is in how we endure. how we protect, and how we rise above fear. Her words carried a truth that struck Varkal to his core. Humans were predators, yes, but they were guardians, thinkers, and leaders all at once. The Arvok soldiers looked on in stunned silence. They had expected weakness. They had expected panic, confusion, and surrender. Instead, they saw coordination, intelligence, and a terrifying yet beautiful balance of skill and morality. Every human movement had been deliberate, every strike calculated, every rescue instinctive, yet perfectly executed. Predator mode was not chaos. It was harmony, instinct fused with intelligence and purpose. Varkal turned to his officers. "We underestimated them," he said quietly, voice tight with emotion. "We assumed they were prey, but we were wrong. Entirely wrong. They are predators, and more than that, they are protectors, thinkers, and survivors beyond compare." Mara's group began helping the wounded Arvok soldiers, offering water, bandages, and quiet encouragement. The humans did not boast, did not gloat, did not make their victory a spectacle. They simply acted with calm efficiency, compassion, and unwavering focus. Varkal realized that this was the truest measure of strength. Not dominance for its own sake, but dominance tempered with care, morality, and unity. A young human boy approached, carrying a small bundle of clean water for the injured. Varkal watched, as a wounded Arvok soldier accepted it hesitantly, eyes wide with disbelief. The human's compassion, even after facing near annihilation, left an impression deeper than any display of raw strength. This was not merely survival. It was humanity in its fullest form. The Arvok fleet prepared to depart, but Varkal lingered, staring at the settlement and the people who had redefined everything he thought he knew. "We came here expecting to judge," he murmured to Carol, his voice heavy with realization. "We leave enlightened. We have witnessed something remarkable. The galaxy has underestimated humans for too long." Mara watched the ships rise into the sky, her expression calm, proud, yet humble. "Let them leave with understanding," she said softly. "We do not need recognition. We only need to survive, and to protect those who cannot protect themselves." As the Arvok fleet disappeared into the void, the humans gathered together, looking across the jagged landscape they had defended and transformed with their courage, cunning, and unity. Their victory was not just over predators. It was over perception, over doubt, over every species that had ever thought them weak. Varkal, deep in his ship, reflected on what he had learned. Humanity was unpredictable, adaptable, and terrifying in its capacity to survive and thrive. Predator mode was not merely an instinctive response. It was a manifestation of the human spirit itself, a force that combined cunning, courage, and morality in perfect balance. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Species that had once dismissed them would remember this day. The humans of Aerith had taught the universe a lesson it could not ignore. Strength was not just in size, weapons, or numbers. True strength lay in willpower, intelligence, unity, and the courage to rise above every challenge. And somewhere in the quiet, Mara looked to the horizon, the sun bathing her face in golden light. She knew this was only one battle. There would be others. But she also knew that humanity was ready. Predator mode would awaken whenever it was needed, and the galaxy would finally understand what humans truly were. Predators, protectors, and a species impossible to underestimate. The legend of that night would spread, whispered across the stars, carried in awe by every species that witnessed it. They had seen predator mode, and in that moment, they realized the truth. Humans were not prey. Humans were the ultimate force of nature,